Imagine walking on eggshells around someone, fearing the explosive reaction that seems to come out of nowhere. What if I told you that beneath that fiery outburst lies a deep, invisible injury, a fragile ego desperately trying to protect itself? Today, we're unraveling the mystery of narcissistic rage, where it comes from, how it takes hold, and why it's so destructive. Narcissistic rage is more than just anger. It's a uniquely intense, disproportionate reaction, often triggered by something that seems insignificant to an outsider. For the person experiencing it, it's an emotional crisis, a response tied to their very identity. To understand this phenomenon, we need to look beyond the surface and into the deeper psychological underpinnings of narcissism itself. Narcissistic rage is as much about survival as it is about control. It's a defense mechanism, a way to protect the carefully constructed image that the narcissist depends on to navigate the world. But where does this rage come from? Why does it look so different from typical anger? And perhaps most importantly, how does it affect those on the receiving end? To grasp the roots of narcissistic rage, we have to start with the origins of narcissism. Many psychologists trace narcissistic tendencies back to childhood, specifically to an environment where emotional needs weren't met in a healthy way. This could mean a parent who was overly critical, neglectful, or even excessively indulgent, creating a distorted sense of self-worth. For a child growing up in such conditions, the world often feels unpredictable and unsafe. As a defense, they build a facade, a kind of emotional armor that shields them from the vulnerability they're desperate to avoid. Over time, this armor hardens into what's known as a false self, an image of perfection that hides their inner feelings of inadequacy and shame. But this false self is fragile. It's like a house of cards, grand and impressive on the outside, but easily toppled by the slightest breeze. And when something threatens this carefully built identity, the result can be catastrophic. That's when narcissistic rage erupts. The triggers for narcissistic rage often seem trivial to others. A perceived slight, a minor criticism, or even a lack of attention. But for the narcissist, these moments aren't small at all. They feel like existential threats, challenges to the image they've worked so hard to maintain. Imagine you're holding a balloon filled with water. Every small jab, every comment, every glance, every perceived insult adds more pressure. Eventually the balloon bursts. That's what happens in the mind of a narcissist. The rage is their way of releasing the unbearable tension caused by a perceived threat to their self-image. What's key here is the word perceived. To the narcissist, the threat doesn't have to be real. It's the mere suggestion of rejection, failure, or humiliation that sets off the internal alarm bells. Narcissistic rage doesn't always look the same. Sometimes it's explosive, screaming, throwing things, or lashing out in ways that leave everyone around them stunned. Other times it's cold and calculating, taking the form of silent treatment, passive aggressiveness, or vindictive actions designed to punish the person who triggered them. One common thread is that narcissistic rage is always disproportionate to the situation. It's not just about the immediate incident. It's about the underlying wound that the incident touched. This is why a small disagreement can escalate into a full-blown crisis. For those on the receiving end, the experience can be bewildering and deeply painful. You might find yourself questioning what you did wrong, replaying the situation in your mind, and blaming yourself for the outburst. But it's crucial to understand that narcissistic rage isn't about you. It's about the narcissist's inner struggle. At the heart of narcissistic rage lies shame, a powerful, often hidden emotion that fuels the narcissist's reactions. Unlike guilt, which focuses on specific actions, shame is about the self. It's the feeling of being fundamentally flawed or unworthy. For a narcissist, shame is intolerable. It's the very thing their false self is designed to protect against. When something threatens to expose this hidden shame, it triggers a defensive response, a desperate attempt to restore their sense of superiority and control. In many ways, narcissistic rage is an act of self-preservation. It's the narcissist's way of saying, "You will not make me feel small. You will not expose my vulnerabilities." Living or working with someone prone to narcissistic rage can be a draining, even traumatic experience. Over time, you might feel like you're walking a tightrope, trying to avoid the next eruption. The unpredictability of their reactions creates a sense of instability, making it difficult to trust or feel secure. But the narcissist isn't immune to the consequences of their rage. Despite their attempts to maintain control, their outbursts often damage their relationships, careers, and reputation. This creates a vicious cycle. The more their world crumbles, the more desperate they become to protect their fragile self-image, and the more frequent and intense their rage becomes. One of the most challenging aspects of narcissistic rage is that it's deeply ingrained in the narcissist's psyche. It's not just a bad habit or a temper issue. It's a core part of how they cope with the world. This makes change incredibly difficult but not impossible. For those willing to seek help, therapy can be a powerful tool. By exploring the root causes of their behavior and learning healthier ways to manage their emotions, narcissists can begin to break the cycle of rage and repair their relationships. However, this requires a level of self-awareness and humility that many narcissists struggle to achieve. So why should we care about narcissistic rage? Because it's more common than you might think. Whether it's a parent, partner, boss, or friend, many of us will encounter someone who struggles with these intense emotional reactions. Understanding the dynamics of narcissistic rage can help us navigate these relationships with greater compassion and clarity. It's also a reminder that what we see on the surface doesn't always tell the full story. Behind every outburst is a deeper struggle, a hidden battle with shame, fear, and vulnerability. Recognizing this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does help us make sense of it. Narcissistic rage is a complex, deeply human phenomenon that reveals the vulnerabilities hiding beneath a seemingly impenetrable exterior. By understanding its origins, manifestations, and impact, we can begin to demystify the behavior and approach it with a sense of empathy and resilience. As we close, consider this. What if the people who seem the most unshakable are also the ones most in need of understanding? It's a thought worth holding on to as we continue to explore the intricacies of human behavior. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care of yourself.